Mitch Gittleman, co-founder and executive producer at Harebrained Schemes.
Chris Rogers, creative director and director of Lamplighters League.
So you guys talk about what is Lamplighters League.
Oh yeah, no problem. So Lamplighters League is our latest turn-based tactical combat game, but it also blends infiltration, real-time infiltration into the mix. It takes place in an alternate 1930s. It's inspired by the pulps of old.
Great aesthetic and time period. You don't see it very often. What made you want to go to this time period?
Big thing for us for this one was characters and not units. So looking around, we love the pulp adventures. We love the big characters and the sort of the fact that you kind of know them. We've got twists on them, but you can kind of see your character as a character rather than as a unit, and learn more about them, their motivations, why they're fighting, and why they're a part of this story.
Yeah, let's talk about the narrative, what's going on in this world. You're bringing in the occult, which is awesome.
We're bringing in a lot of things. Actually, what's interesting is you're fighting against this group called the Banished Court, and we won't tell you much about them now, but there are 3 leaders of the Banished Court. Each one has a very different feel and very different background about them. So, yeah, there's occult elements, but there's also sort of 1930s high tech about them, and then there's some that are just totalitarian jerks. So, it's a really right milieu. And I'm glad that we were able to tap into it, because nobody's really doing this, and we don't know why, because we love it to death.
Yeah, it's such a rich world to jump into and to sort of draw on things like things that you might know about like the occult, or about hypnotism, or about mesmerism and Cthulhu and tarot cards, and all these different elements that sort of combine to create our own world that you recognize or kind of has a connection to sort of those pulp adventures from the 1930s.
So inspirations for the world building. I'm picking up Indiana Jones, film noir, a little bit of The Mummy in there maybe.
Oh, sure, all of that.
That sounds great. Yeah, all those are great. I think we like to say always pulp, sometimes noir, never camp. And so it's always pulp. It's always big adventures. It's always like we're up against it. There's dark corners of the map that we haven't explored, and our characters are facing off against incredible odds. Sometimes noir, like our characters have some backstories that they're carrying shadows with them or dangers with them, but never camp. We're never like making fun of the premise or kind of joking around or poking fun at our characters.
Inspiration, absolutely. I think Chris is right. I mean, everything that you get here, it's very comfortable. You kind of know it, but it's fresh when you combine it in the ways that we do. One of the things about the Lamplighters League is really interesting is that the group has been around for hundreds of years, right? And they were all these sort of do-gooders, they're scholars and experts in their different fields that band together to fight the Banished Court over hundreds of years. And in the last war, during World War I, they were all obliterated. And so there's one left, and the best of the best are gone, and he has to collect the best of the worst. That's what he's got.
You son of a bitch, I'm in. One of those things?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's really cool, because every time you recruit a new character into the Lamplighters League, right, they come back with you, and then you get to learn about their backstory, and then about the backstory of the Lamplighters League, because we don't just throw that at you. Everything sort of unfolds for you, and I love that type of storytelling.
You guys talk about building your team and recruiting these people and how you'll go on to missions, and how many people can go on missions.
Sure, so we have 10 characters to play at launch. Yeah, each character plays completely differently. They each have their go-to signature move, which is a move they can use once per mission, but they also have their own unique abilities, their own style of fighting. And part of the great fun of the game for us has been to combine characters and see how they play and what synergies we can create through different things that the characters can do. And so in addition to learning about the narrative, which Mitch was talking about, it's also they fight like their character. So our character that is big and strong and gruff can pick people up and throw them across the map. Our healer is very concerned with sort of striking a blow for justice. And so there's this real synergy between who they are, how they fight. And there's also ways that you can customize your characters, as well as putting together the right combination for you to take on the Banished Court.
And then from there, you can take 3 of them onto a mission, sometimes 4 on a mission based on the type of mission. And the real fun part is figuring out which characters to put with which character to combine their abilities into really interesting gameplay. Part of what Chris was saying before about, this, you're facing kind of overwhelming odds, and there's always this sense of, how the hell am I going to get out of this? And when you combine the abilities, you start finding new ways of doing it and improvising your way out of anything you can get into. I'm a terrible player, and yet I'm a good improviser. And so all I have to do is think hard enough and like, oh, I know, what if I do this and then do this and then do this? Oh my God, I did it. And I high-five myself sometimes when I'm playing the game.
What are some of the challenges of making abilities for these characters? Because, if you have a sci-fi game or a fantasy game or even a superhero game, they have powers, big flashy things, but I'm saying grounded, they can't see me, grounded. You're grounded. Like, how do you make these abilities unique and fantastic and colorful and unique amongst the classes?
Well, it starts with the character fantasy, right? Like, who is this character? Like, this character is a swordsman, like, who's a martial arts expert. And because our setting is occult and because there are supernatural, there's high tech, it gives us some room to do stuff and to sort of play with things. And then once we have that idea of like, well, if I want to be that character, what's our unique take on it? And what does that character fight like, and how do they fight differently? So for our swordsman, he can teleport across the map with his strikes, and he also fights with a pistol because, like, again, we are fighting with the best of the worst, not the best of the best. He's okay with pulling out his pistol when the time comes to strike a blow. Yeah. Exactly.
About abilities, yeah. The other thing that we have in the game, the Lamplighters League, they having been around a long time, they're facing overwhelming odds and always have been, but they have one thing the enemy doesn't, right? It's sort of their Excalibur. It's called the Undrawn Hand. And the Undrawn Hand is this ancient artifact that they've been trying to understand for hundreds of years, and it's a blank deck of playing cards, right? But what happens is when you risk yourself for the good, a card will reveal itself. And when it does, you discover what it can do, and then you can assign it to one of your characters, and that's how they get additional, more interesting abilities than, the run-of-the-mill gun upgrade or something like that. So it's really interesting, very, very powerful. There's a bunch of different cards. Some of them are rare. Some of them are unique and things like that. You can find more of them in the field. You can rescue a cartomancer to come back with you to your hideout to help you decipher how to use it better, stuff like that. So that's a really interesting element to help you customize and grow your characters and have them work together in really different ways.
It's kind of like a modular morale talent system. Instead of having like a set tree, you have like random stuff that generates based on how you play.
How you play, you find them in the field, but you also can use different resources to unlock new abilities of the Undrawn Hand, right? And new ways of adding them to your characters. So it's pretty interesting. This is not a card game. This is not a card.
No, this is for abilities, yeah.
Tactical combat game, right? Turn-based tactical combat game with real-time infiltration, and then one of the upgrade systems uses cards. Got to get that out there.
This is a set of different, 30 to 40 different abilities and passives that you can equip to characters. So each of these characters have their individual way of fighting, their unique passive, their unique signature, their ability sets, but they also have the ability to be customized through the Undrawn Hand. So if you're fighting with a melee character but you'd like them to have a ranged ability and you come across the right card, you can now give them a ranged ability for the rest of the game. And that influences who you want to bring, because a lot of times you're using your cards to help your teammates. And so it's a big part of your build as you go through the game.
Can we talk about some of the status effects here? I saw knockdown, stress was something I saw as well. That's the thing. Like, what are some other effects? I mean, do you have like other elements like fire damage, poison damage, that kind of stuff?
So the big ones are fire, shock, we have poison. Poison does a lot of stress damage, and stress is sort of an alternate health system. Some characters are spec'd better to attack with stress. Our occult hypnotist, Celestine, she uses stress, and she can use stress to gain extra AP for herself. She can also stress out enemies, and she can hypnotize enemies. And when she does that, she can the enemy joins your team, and after that, you can finish them. If an enemy maxes out on stress, then you can finish them off like with a one-hit kill. So Celestine can allow you to push the stress. If your characters are also dealing with stress, and if your characters pick up stress, then you'll pick up a special tarot card called a breaking card, or an undrawn hand card called a breaking card, that will give you a penalty for the next few missions. So that character has to work through the stress break that they went through on the previous mission.
It's kind of like you do a mission, you got to come back, manage resources, then go on the next mission.
Exactly.
Like a turn-based dungeon crawler type of thing, but missions.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
What a shock. Yeah. And also between missions, besides sending people on missions, you can send your agents on search expeditions. And those search expeditions can uncover all sorts of things. They could uncover the location of other agents that you could recruit to your cause. They could uncover the locations of allies to bring back to your base to add value to your team, right? But also you can look for special missions that will move the plot forward, all sorts of things like that. So we've got a map. There's a bunch of stuff to do. The variety in this game is really great.
As you're doing that, the three factions of the enemy, the Banished Court, are also gaining, and so you have their threat is growing, and as they grow, they bring new units onto the field or new sort of modifiers to missions that make your life more difficult. So a big part of what you're trying to do as you're trying to pursue your strategy is to hold them back and to make sure that you are facing the right enemy at the right time and pushing them back so that they don't gain too quickly and make your life too difficult on the other side.
Your studio is no stranger to strategy-based games. What's the biggest takeaway you've learned from past games that you brought with you and improved upon in Lamplighters League, would you say?
I think the characters for us, one of the things that we really found with our previous game, Battletech, was that people were really connected to our characters and kind of made a connection based on sort of how they played or who they were, like which mech they were in, Decker and Glitch. And so we wanted to build on that. We wanted to bring that forward as we really wanted to forge a connection between the player and the character as a key part of this experience.
It feels great to us too. What's interesting is when you recruit the characters, not only do you add their gameplay, but you add the character themselves to your roster, and then they start interacting with each other. You can uncover their background, you can uncover more background of the Lamplighters League, etc. And the more you take characters on missions together, the more you learn about them. And so we really like that aspect too. It feels good both in mission and out of mission to play with these characters, and that's really rewarding.
I know you guys are making a video game, but you seem really focused on narrative and character-driven development. Any plans for transmedia, comic, Saturday morning cartoon, maybe? I mean...
Never say never.
Can we give you some of that Netflix money?
I'll give you one more quote for that one. In success, all things are possible.
When does it come out, and what platforms are you aiming for at launch?
Okay, so it comes out in 2023, and it comes out on Steam, Epic, and Xbox Game Pass. How do you say all that?
Right. It comes out on Xbox and Xbox Game Pass.
Day one?
Yeah.
Day one.
Any plans for future titles? I mean, I love turn-based games on the Nintendo Switch, just throwing it out there.
Oh, very interesting. You mean different platforms for us? Oh, yeah. In success, all things are possible.